Christian. How you doing?
Hey, all set.
How's it going, Jim?
Hello, everyone. So we'll call the meeting to order at 7:06 p.m. We'll start off with roll calls. James Watts is here. Ron is here. Dan, Robin is absent. We've got Paul.
Paul's here.
Mike Lockett. No Bob Christman. Ethan, not present. And Judy. And then from our town board, we got Tom DeGatti and Jim Sharp as a guest. And I guess we can also welcome our new members, Christian, Taylor, and Ryan. Do a little intro for everyone if you want. Ryan, do you want to go first?
Sure.
Since you're in my top right.
Hey. Hey, everyone. Ryan McDonald. I'm excited to join and see what I can do to help contribute and have some constructive conversation here. Work at Health Now New York as a sysadmin, focusing a lot on the collaboration side and the Microsoft suite as a whole. So wanted to give my 2 cents and see what we can do here.
Great. Welcome. Taylor, do you want to go next, if you don't mind?
Sure. I'm Taylor Kaufman. I'm really happy to be here. I'm more of an information security professional. I work at M&T Bank. I do a lot of cybersecurity risk design. Newly passed CISSP for those of you who know what that is. Just really happy to see how I can help. I know Robin's not on, but I've passed along a couple questions to her during the whole pandemic on how you guys are secure and everything. So now I can just ask directly.
Great. Welcome. And Christian?
Yeah, hey guys, pleasure to join you. My name is Christian Belita. I've been at Yahoo or Verizon Media for almost 7 years. I'm an IT manager. Currently, I'm a partner operations manager. So I'm a liaison and act as the in-between between engineering teams between Yahoo and our 4 largest North American partners.
Great, thanks. I think we all can go around the table too. I'll start. Ron Stipp, an enterprise systems architect, quite the title, for Horizon Health Services in the area. Day-to-day do IT infrastructure stuff. So, been on the committee for 2 years, 3 years, something like that. So, been enjoying it. It's been good. Paul, you want to introduce yourself now?
Okay, I'm Paul Roeder. I worked at Dunlop Tire. I was in IT for, I think, 37 years. I started in 1970, an application programmer. Things were different then, you know. And I ended up being the director of IT for Dunlop for North America. I was there for about 15 years probably.
Cool.
Now I'm retired. Forgot to mention the most important part. I've been retired for 13 years. Yeah.
The best part.
Yeah.
Jim, do you want to go next? You got a chance?
Which Jim?
I don't care. Watts, since he unmuted himself.
Okay. I'm Jim Watts. You can hear me, right?
Yep.
Okay. Yep. Jim Watts. I'm retired from telecommunications engineering, Rochester Telephone, Global Crossing, Frontier, Level 3. Worked in engineering, fiber optics, and infrastructure engineering for quite a few years. So I'm retired now, and I've been with the committee for, I don't know, about 3 years now.
Great. Jim Sharp.
Okay, let's see. Been in computers since 1966. I became a systems engineer. I was a director of technology for Sweet Home for 15 years, and then I went on to be a director for technology for Tapestry for another couple of years. And I've been involved with this committee probably for the last 6 or 7 years. And right now my involvement is with the Erie County broadband process that's going on right now.
Great. Judy?
Hi, I'm Judy Schmidt, and I'm basically on the board because my work with the town's website, and I have a degree in computer science from UB. Of course, I've been retired for years, so hardly counts at all anymore for me, but it does help a bit. And I enjoy learning a lot from all the really big experts on this board. So, my time.
Great. Mike Lockett?
Well, my name's Mike Lockett. I've been on the board from the mists of time. It's at least 10 years. I don't really know how long it is. I know nothing about computers or telecommunications, so what the hell am I on this board for, you might say.
Good sounding board.
I'm the one that brings you back to reality, I think. So I was with Praxair for 25 years, and I retired 13 years ago. And then I went to UB, professor of chemical engineering, retired from there now. So I'm now emeritus professor of chemical engineering at UB, whatever that means. That's about it, really. So.
Great. Dan?
I'm Dan Schwimmer. I studied computer science, IT, computer security for like almost 20 years. I've mostly been working at JP Morgan Chase right now, kind of doing programming and business management. Also have done project management and worked for a couple local places for a bit as well, like M&T. So just here to contribute in any way I can.
Very great. Thanks. Tom, did you want to put your 2 cents in for the heck of it?
Yeah, I'm Tom Degatti, the town board liaison. We all met during the interviews. Every time I sit on one of these meetings, I'm reminded about how little I actually know about technology, because these guys are pretty darn good, and the three of you fit right in. The amount of expertise on this board just blows my mind. So welcome, and look forward to working with you all.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Next item on the agenda is to review and approve the minutes. I sent those out earlier today. Does everybody want to did everybody read them yet? Want to take a minute to skim them?
Ron, the only thing I had is where at the end it says Rhonda, the supervisor's assistant, has exclusive management of the Facebook page.
Yep.
That's not true. Jen Bainey and myself also have access.
Okay.
Rhonda's really the point person unless there's an emergency.
Okay.
I don't bother with it, but there are a couple others that have access.
Maybe we'll put that there's 2 point people of the board that have management over the Facebook page. Does that sound pretty good? Or do you want to name them?
No, that's fine.
I put 2 point people on the town board have management over the Facebook page in addition to the supervisor's assistant to oversight and assist.
Yep.
Great. Anything else? Anybody else see anything for corrections or changes or edits? Cool. Can I make a motion to approve the minutes from February, a long time ago?
Yeah, I'll make the motion.
Mike, got the motion?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Paul's got the second. Moving along, under group discussions for our 2020 technology board focus, how can we help? Just to start off from the one first bullet point for the new members, we last year we did a technology satisfaction survey, which we put together a handful of questions, threw them on a Google Forms, and sent it out widely across the island. Publicized it both on the Facebook groups, Isle des Grands website, Dispatch, all those good avenues. We received a good amount of feedback, but the feedback was kind of surprisingly all over the place. Some people thought things were really great with the carriers and internet connections on the island, and some people thought that they were really bad. And then there were people in the middle that just thought everything was so-so. So we took a bunch of that feedback. We brought it back to the committee here. We did get some of that feedback back to Spectrum, which was one of the major carriers on the island that many people had issues with. I don't know if we have a next steps yet on this. I don't know if we want to do another round maybe this year to see if things have improved over the last year. If we want to take a look at the questions again, redesign them.
You know, one thing that struck me is how much we've depended on the internet during this virus. You know, the kids are all doing stuff from home and everybody's working from home and everybody's watching Netflix all the time. And it seems as though it's stood up okay, you know, compared with all the problems we thought a couple of years ago. They thought there was many problems on the island, but I haven't personally had any issues and I haven't heard of any issues. So that's quite remarkable, I think.
Yeah. It's definitely been taxed pretty well over the last few months. So
I have to say that on Facebook, normally that's where we see everybody complaining.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Spectrum's down, this is down, who's complaining? And it doesn't seem to have been as bad considering how many kids, or maybe the kids weren't using it, I don't know. But I haven't seen as many complaints as I normally do, or at least there wasn't an increase in complaints. So hopefully, you know, I haven't had any issues, but then I never had any to begin with. So I'm not really sure, you know, how you want to go with it. If we see any difference around in what
the kids are using. I have a 7 and 9-year-old. They're on it all the time with their friends and doing whatever. They all use it.
Yeah, I think that that Spectrum has stepped up their game. I think they've improved speeds and their service has gotten a little more reliable and dependable. And given with this virus, I think the usage has been pretty heavy, not only for kids getting on it, but people entertaining themselves through movies and everything else. So we really haven't heard much complaining. I don't know if the town board or anybody's been, Tom, if anybody's been contacting anybody, you know, on board members about this, but it doesn't seem like there's been a lot of complaints about Spectrum. So I think we keep it on the radar, and if we start hearing complaints again, we bring it back up.
Haven't heard a word, which on that front, no news is certainly good news, because all we ever hear is the bad.
Cool. Okay. I think we'll keep it on the list of maybe possible ideas we can bring out later. See how things go. To the new members here, I'll put together a PDF of everything and I'll send it just so you guys can take a peek at it, see what the results were, and draw some conclusions from it. So next item on the list was town document standards. So one thing that we brought up near the end of last year and the beginning of this year was that we've always heard that the town gets minutes in various forms. So for us technology people, we know the easiest, cleanest way to send something is as an attachment in an email. But we've heard things that it gets made in a Word doc, sent to a PDF, emailed to somebody else, then printed, then scanned back in, then tried to OCR it. Well, it's crooked or it's sideways. So one of the things our committee kind of wanted to try and do was set up some document standards, you know, just to kind of guide not only all the advisory boards and committees and stuff, but, you know, the town as a whole on some document standards, best practices, how to best, you know, send out documents and stuff like that. Tom, I don't know if any of that's kind of changed with the past few months of pandemic, for better or worse.
A little bit of both, because I'll tell you one thing that the pandemic did is really, really, really highlighted how far behind we are when it comes to technology. And thankfully, the town board members had just received laptops. Literally, we picked them up. I think I picked mine up the Monday after the lockdown went into effect. And we've had that, because aside from that, I mean, we had so many employees that were at home that perhaps could have been working from home, but weren't because they didn't have access to stuff. But the whole pandemic really, I think, is going to thrust real changes on the technology front, and we're going to rely heavy on you. And it stinks that we couldn't meet during the last 3 months, because even something as simple as trying to piece together these Zoom meetings that we basically did because it was what worked, it would have been great to have insight from you guys. But moving forward, I think there's going to be a lot of things that we're going to rely on this board to kind of help guide our transition from a system where I have to take 6 copies of a memo that I want. If I want to put something on the town board agenda, I got to take 6 copies of it down to Patty. It's nonsense. It's a waste of trees. It's a waste of money. So there's going to be a lot that has to change, and this really, I think, is going to help effectuate that change.
Right. I wonder if maybe one of the things that can help is if you brought some of those things to light, like, hey, I have to bring 6 copies down to Patty. Well, then we could say, okay, well, wait, what was the original source? And then maybe from there, the committee can start to, build what should be that original format, and how should that, be delivered and conveyed and stuff. So
yeah, I mean, so from a procedure standpoint, it's the same whether it's me or this is probably a bigger conversation than we can have now, and I know Judy and Jim certainly have probably some insight into this. But for the most part, no matter what it is, I give her 6 copies because she then collates by hand the town board packets, the agenda packets that are distributed to the town board, which are different from the agenda packets that make it to the website. And the whole thing, it seems so bizarre to me, because I'm from the private sector where in the legal field, we're doing everything we can to go paperless because it's more consistent. If I need something, I can pull it up on the system and print it out. No problem if I want to work off a paper copy of something. Mm-hmm. And John, for example, although he certainly supports this, is he would like to have a paper copy of at least the agenda and some of the documents, because he reads the stuff as he goes to the meeting, and that's fine. But why? So one of the other things is with like the planning board, for example, they collate those agendas as well, and that has some different things when you're dealing about the maps and the drawings and stuff that they get. So when it comes to that, it's a memorandum in a Word document that says, I want this, but a lot of times there's attachments that could be PDFs, they could be photos, they could be these maps. I don't even know what the file format is for those maps. I imagine there's something that integrates with the GIS system, but who knows? So, right. It's a big, I think now is absolutely a prime time to get a set of document standards together, because if we have them in place now as we make that transition, then it's just, they're always there, as opposed to making the transition to an electronic based system and having to catch up on the standards for it after the fact.
Maybe a good starting point then for us would be starting with the advisory committees. We could start setting that example. I know, Judy, you could speak on that, how different everybody's agendas and minutes and everything varies when they got uploaded to the website. I haven't looked at them in quite some time, but I'm sure you see them in your dreams. So,
well, yeah, because I'm one of the few people that does work on the website. So, and I do see it, and Word docs on the website are just, I don't like them, because every time I'd rather everything was put on as a PDF file. Mm-hmm. Trying to search for the documents are haphazard, whether we get minutes or not. They're not always submitted to be put on the website. Sometimes the only place you'll see them is in the consent agenda in the agenda packet, which makes it very difficult to find out what the other boards are doing, or for the general public to take a look at what conservation or traffic safety is doing. I've been trying to put as much of that online on their pages as I possibly can, or put them in the document center of the town code, which has a really good search engine too. Mm-hmm. I even used the bulk uploader the other day, Ron.
Did you?
Yeah, it worked really well.
Cool.
So yeah, I would love to see the minutes come to a central Well, you know, I've been saying it all along. The town needs
Right.
a key person. That's all there. That's the bottom line. They need somebody to coordinate, whether it's access to the systems, to make sure that if people have a problem, they need a troubleshooter, somebody that, you know, a help desk, something. If you're going to move into that system, well, you guys all know that. You all work in that field. You know that there are some people that just don't know what the heck they're doing when they open up a computer, and they're lost. So, but we need to be there to help them, and we shouldn't be depending on, you know, somebody that'll get back to you next week.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, we need a webmaster, and we don't have one of those that works for the town.
I was gonna say we do, but she doesn't work for the town.
So I don't think that in the security and of having a citizen like myself being the webmaster is really proper way for it to be. So, you know,
I would agree.
Look at that. Even if I know, Jim, we had talked about some kind of sharing like we do with the assessor or with some other things, and maybe we don't need somebody full time, but it's something to look into.
And Tom, I'm available if you want to have a sidebar on this issue.
Definitely. I think that is something I mean, links they're helpful, but they're, you know, just what they do is different than what we're talking about as far as having an actual
Right.
a help desk, somebody on the spot.
Yeah, they're
Exactly.
supporting and maintaining, but they're not building that big picture for you that the town needs.
Right. Right.
Exactly.
They're not
getting, I'm sorry, Tom. It's also getting the secretaries of the board to put them in a format and submit them so that they can be uploaded to the website or uploaded to the consent agenda in the meeting packet. So,
Mhm.
Yeah. You have to change some. Yeah, you're going to have to change the way you do business inside of the departments and including the clerk's office. So it's more than just setting standards. It's changing.
You've muted yourself, Jim.
Oh, I said it's more than the setting the standards. It's actually changing the culture. And as we all know, working in the industry, that's one of the biggest challenges is that you can set standards, but getting the users to understand why you're doing what you're doing is the biggest hurdle.
Right.
Well, the town board has liaison members with each of the associated boards like ours. So if members of the town board could pull together, you know, some kind of guidance in terms of what the rest of us are doing, and then we could all work together and try to join in on that and format things the same. But you know, I don't know, Tom, I don't know where that goes. If you need help, I mean, certainly there's people on this committee that could help provide some guidance into what might be the best way to do that.
Well, that's what I was going to say is I don't know is the easiest way. It sounds like based on what you're saying, we don't want, you know, if we tell everybody we want it in a PDF, there are some chairs that just aren't going to, some secretaries / chairs that aren't going to understand what that is. And there's going to be some that are just going to print it out and scan it in and send it over to us, but that defeats the purpose.
Sure does.
What we're looking for is something that, right.
Mm-hmm.
What we're looking for is something that I'm assuming we're converting a Word document into a PDF. So I guess what we'll have to figure out is whether it's easiest to do that, to have all of the agendas and minutes submitted to the clerk's office in Word formats, and then Patty can be the one responsible for the conversion. Mm-hmm. I mean, if nothing else, as an attorney, just from a credibility standpoint, it doesn't make any sense to save anything electronically in a Word format, because you know how many times I've, in my field, opened up a motion that I'm going to submit, that I'm going to draft. I've opened up an old one to use the form, and then accidentally saved over the old one. And then what? Now your minutes are gone. So,
sure.
Right.
You know, that's the type of stuff that I think, if it comes from this board first as to what the best practice is, we can certainly, between the town board and the liaisons to the various advisory boards, we can get it implemented. It's just I have a basic understanding, but we'd look to you guys for the guidance on what the best practice is, and we'll make sure it gets implemented.
Right. Good first start. Yeah, I think so too. I think a good format. I think our agendas and our minutes are pretty well structured. I think they're pretty clean. I don't know if Judy, maybe you've seen other ones that are better from other committees. Maybe we
Parks and Rec, right, Judy?
Well, we have a full-time secretary now in Parks and Rec. There's a couple other boards. I think what I will say is that there are a couple boards that technically, I want to be nice.
Historic preservation comes to mind.
They're technologically challenged, right?
Extremely.
Yes, and
that's the nicest way to put it.
Those are there's only a couple, but the ZBA and the Planning Board and CAB, Conservation Advisory Board, Traffic Safety. No, not Traffic Safety. But CAB and EDAB, Economic Development. Sorry, they're all pretty good. They submit things in PDF forms and they're knowledgeable on how to do that. But I know the secretaries on those boards, so yeah. Full disclosure, Taylor, Ryan, and Christian, I'm the chairman of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, so that's why. And Tom's our liaison, so that's why he happened to mention that board. But yeah.
PDFs are definitely a great start for sure. And I mean, even if they get to the supervisor's office, the office without being in a PDF, we should force those to be put into a PDF before they're uploaded to sources.
I agree.
On the site, it's possible if you get a Word doc, you can upload it, and you can just click one little box and say upload it as convert it to a PDF file. So as long as you remember to do that, and as long as you remember to put it in the right place, sometimes there's a big bucket at the end of the directory that everything gets dumped into.
Well, and that's Judy or Jim. Do either of you know, Jim Sharp, that is, either of you even know if Patty maintains an electronic archive of some sort? Is that a no, she doesn't? Or no, you don't know?
She has a semi one, but she doesn't understand fully how to do a PDF. And I'll give an example. Her interpretation of PDF is take it to the copy machine and save it as a PDF. That's really not the way it should be done. It should be done by taking a Word document and then saving it as a PDF, because then it's fully searchable. But to scan it into the copy machine and make a PDF, you're making a picture. So the bottom line is we need to better interpret how that's actually handled on their side, and also to the users, that taking it to the copy machine isn't the option. The option is to actually, you're creating them electronically, save it as electronic PDF, and then now you got a fully functional scanned document without going to our.
Go ahead.
But even for the sake of maintaining her documents for 7 years, does she keep a paper file somewhere, or does she actually have an electronic copy of agendas?
No, she has hard copies of everything. She doesn't have a PDF archiving.
Where do we keep all that?
It's in those big file cabinets in the room just outside the clerk's office. She just bought more filing cabinets that save more of the documents, and then they look at a timeline of when things can expire for them to throw away, and then some of the documents of history that need to be saved are actually in the vault. So a lot of our stuff is done. We used to do the making them, what were the old days of microfishing them, and that became difficult to manage, and also the equipment became obsolete, so that became a non-issue. So they're halfway, they got to put it in the door, but they're not always crossed it yet, Tom. We really need to have them understand exactly what we're trying to accomplish.
Right.
A quick question, Jim.
The more we do now, the less we have to do, asking for grants to catch up and digitize all the old stuff that she's been doing.
Exactly. And they're digitizing, but they're not doing OCR and some of that stuff, which means that you're putting them out there that we can OCR them to turn around and go back in time. and actually search on a word to find out what happened in 1991. Now you have to go back and look at pictures of stuff, but you can't scan for it or look for history of it, other than the stuff we put in the code section. That stuff has OCR, and you're able to search on it, but it only goes back maybe 6-7 years. So you really want to go back 20 years. You want to go back 30.
Yeah, it's difficult. And the other thing is moving forward, I would like to see them start doing it digitally. And I brought that up to the clerk's office, but the problem was personnel. There weren't enough personnel to do it.
When I spoke with her, pretty much when we got, as we were talking about the board getting laptops and trying to make that transition, part of it was the concern for scanning in and having usable copies of those odd-shaped documents, stuff from the planning board, the maps, the stuff like that, was one of her issues. It was not so much a personnel issue. It was, we have all this weird size stuff that we don't know what to do with or how to tackle. So
I would agree to a degree, but I would disagree, because when you're scanning, you can scan in any dimension you want. While I was there, the majority of everything I had has been turned into a PDF so that I could actually turn around and be more functional. And looking back on stuff or going forward, especially in all the committees we have. But I still think it's more or less understanding exactly what we're trying to accomplish. And I'm not here to criticize. I'm only saying we need to have a plan. And what the committee is actually saying is come up with a acceptable standards of practices that we can talk about implementing. And then by doing that, you're going to explain how we do that. Working with education for 15 years, my job was to bring it into the new world. And it's a matter of people understand why they're doing what they're doing. And getting into the territorial problems, it becomes where your challenges are. And I'm not criticizing.
Yeah, and no, nor am I. I mean, really, it is this, their system worked well for so long, but it's time to upgrade it. And, you know, another thing that comes to mind for me is when you're dealing with stuff like that, one thing, you know, Project Olive, how many pages have they sent us? But you know what they've also done? They've sent us electronic copies of every single page they've sent us. So one way to get around that issue would be to make our process from the beginning an electronic based process where they're submitting the stuff in a native form that we can use rather than paper copies that just get run through a scanner. But
engineering is requiring any plans coming to the engineering department have to be put in a format that is an electronic format. Yes, they want printed copy because there's still a need to have printed copy because certain planning board members cannot do electronic, but it still comes down to we should have every vendor turn around and submit everything electronically. And anywhere, like we're asking every committee to submit everything electronically. Anybody dealing business with the town of Grand Island should be submitting their copy with a hard copy and electronic version of it, so that you don't have to go through this process and you're kind of then taking it out of the, not out of the control, but taking it out of the responsibility of somebody converting it into that document that you can use across the board.
Christian, did you have something earlier?
Yeah, so I didn't want to interrupt. Jim, when you were talking about you guys are in the process of transitioning the standard into PDF, I mean, you said you have stuff in a vault. I mean, is there any plans to back that up electronically? I mean, if town hall went up in fire, are we in trouble?
Well, that vault
is the obvious. I mean,
they're fireproof filing cabinets, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the filing cabinets are fireproof as well. That's why that's why the clerk got a grant to turn around and do them. Additionally, getting more, but there is a grant that is for microfiching them, which is making picture PDFs out of them, but not in a format that we can actually search for. That seems to be the one thing that's missing in the conversation, or understanding what we're trying to accomplish on that.
Keep moving yourself.
It's that MacBook he's got.
Right. I guess that answers my question, because I was going to ask those and the board find it beneficial that we should be electronically backing those up. it sounds like you're in the process of that. However, if you ever need to recollect or go back and search for anything, I mean, without the ability to search, it's almost moot, right? Are you gonna? What's the difference then at that point? Being able to, at least with a PDF, you have the ability, you know, Control F, and you can search for whatever you need in some type of contractual agreement or anything like that.
Right.
Hey Tom, just for a question. Project Olive, everything is being submitted digitally as well as paper form. So
Yes.
What are we doing with the digital submissions? What does the town clerk do with the digital submissions?
I have no idea what Patty does with them.
Can we find out?
Yeah, the supervisor's office has been updating them to the website.
I've
been posting them.
Like Jim, and they've been. I've gone through the 1,100 page document that we got, and you know, separated out by bookmarks, so people that weren't familiar with how to use the bookmarks when looking at a PDF file, that I put them separately, and I tried to put all of the exhibits and you know, pull them out and put them in separate PDF files in the document center on the current project site. Plus, Project Olive does have its own website. TC Buffalo has a website that's tcbuffalo.com and tcbuffalograndisland.com that has all of the documents there too. So in PDF form, so you can go there and look at them.
Yeah, I guess the point I'm making though is that it's our town, so shouldn't that be the town clerk's responsibility to archive that kind of stuff?
And that's my point, Jim, is I think we need to work on the transition from archiving the 6,000 plus pages of paper that she's received and shift to that, because why store, you know, a 4 feet tall stack of paper at this point when we can shred it and save it in
well, that's what I'm saying. If we already have it in digital form, I mean, Judy, you're managing it, but really shouldn't that be the clerk's office that does that?
Surprisingly enough, Jim, the clerk has never asked for, or does not have access to the website, does not have an ID and password, does not have permission. Not that she couldn't have it if she wanted it, but right now there's only 2 people. Well, there's only 1 person in the town that actually has a user ID to use the website, and that's the supervisor's assistant. So before it was, you know, the supervisor did, and a couple other people, but with a new administration, that's not so anymore. So it's basically Rhonda and myself that maintain the website. Mostly Rhonda. I just help her out if she gets stuck or has to do something new she hasn't ever done before.
Okay. Well, I think we have a couple good takeaways there. I mean, Jim, do you remember, did she have a full version of Adobe, Clark? Do you remember?
I don't know if I'm pretty sure she does, but I don't know if she's actually using it.
Right.
She has a full version. No, she has a full version of Acrobat and Adobe. Yes.
Okay. Because that might even help with, at least if, you know, receiving things, ensuring OCRs on them, all that good stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, she has the professional version of Acrobat Pro.
Okay. So maybe maybe we can create, you know, for our committees, a guide how to create those PDFs from Word docs. I think that's pretty easy now with all the latest updates of Office and Word and all that stuff, and maybe a little bit of a guide in PDF too that we could pass along, that Tom can pass along. That might be a great starting point, at least in terms of getting stuff in a standardized PDF format.
Yeah, and just speaking from experience, I mean, I don't know if anyone's familiar with Office Lens. Does a great job of taking just a plain piece of paper, converting it to a PDF with a snap of a picture on a smartphone. So plenty of free tools out there that we can take advantage of and get that converted.
That's a great idea too. Cool. Next point on the 2020 technology focus was the recording of meetings, which was a proposal from a town resident. I think COVID kind of finished that one off the list.
It forced our hand. Like I said, I'm hopeful that the next time we meet in July, we can do so in person. I don't know if anybody watched the Project Olive public hearing, but we have the conference room set up now with a webcam and an omnidirectional mic so that we could, if we were in the room, I could log in to the Zoom meeting so that it's open to the public if we wanted to have participants or anything like that. And then have the Zoom meeting on the TV in the conference room, and we can get that up to YouTube. We've now done, we just got the hardware in from Lynx. I think they set it up to do the same thing for the courtroom so that we can hold when we're allowed to hold, even once we're allowed to hold public hearings with people present, we're going to continue to have kind of a hybrid virtual and traditional public hearings. So for now, this platform seems like it's going to take care of that recording issue. There's room for improvement, I think. And if you look, like Judy mentioned, the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, I think they might be the only board that doesn't meet in town hall somewhere. So they don't, as of yet, unless we change our locations, have hardware to record and broadcast the meetings. But I mean, it's definitely something that I think is of a lot of value to the public and to the town board, because, a lot of times you get decisions that are unanimous, but sometimes you don't. And when we get a referral and it's a 4-3 vote in a board, being able to go back and watch a meeting and find out what the discussion was, instead of just looking at the minutes and saying, okay, 4-3, here was why, and here was what, just a one sentence summary of why somebody voted no against it. I think that's invaluable to the town board members to really be able to look back and dig into what the conversation was at the advisory board level and how that vote panned out. So I definitely think it's something that even when we're back to as normal as we will ever be, I'd like to see continue.
I have a quick question. Are we using audio transcription in these meetings?
We are not yet. Zoom and Google, because we upload it to YouTube through either program. You can get a rough they'll roughly transcribe it. For some of the other stuff, Project Olive's attorneys have asked for actual transcripts, because with the public hearings, part of being able to do them virtually rather than in person was we had to make a transcript available. So that, for something like that, where it's being used in a more formal way, we're going to have a stenographer or something like that actually go through it and create a real transcript. But
great. Next item on the list was the broadband project. Will anything happen in 2020? Bring the newcomers up to speed on this. Something we started last year was we did wouldn't call it a solicitation, but more of a study of the feasibility of putting fiber pretty much down the center of the island for major use for town purposes. But we also branched out to possibly adding the school onto that fiber to be able to take a little bit of benefit of some of the resources they have, but also use, some of the BOCES features and stuff and functionality and all that good stuff. So I have that in an email still. I could send that out to you guys so you guys can take a peek at that. But I think it's definitely something that's still on our radar as a whole technology. I mean, personally, I'd like to see it move forward. Tom, do you know if there will ever be a future presentation with the school on that? I mean, COVID obviously changes a lot of things too, but kind of delayed.
COVID didn't help. I brought it up informally with someone I knew on the school end of things, and it doesn't sound promising, but I think we keep at it and try and get something. I think having an alternative to what we have would be great, and for numerous reasons, having fiber running down the center of the island would be helpful.
Was there any plans to branch off and have that for residential, or is it just for the business district?
I'll let Jim or Jim take care of that because I know they've got the answer.
Okay.
Jim Sharp nominated on that one.
Okay. Well, I'm going to comment on a couple of pieces of it. We did a broadband study or a dark fiber project for the town of Grand Island. One was done in Amherst, which I was part of with the University of Buffalo. The broadband project or dark fiber, you're going to hear both those words, which are simultaneous. They're the same thing. That was a joint venture between school and government. The reason we did that is that the town of Grand Island is not eligible to get E-rate, where schools are eligible to get E-rate. So when we did the broadband project in Amherst, we were able to fund a great deal of it through education because the E-rate money is just lingering out there and only be used for the schools. The only reason they're using it for is actually to pay for internet charges, but it covers dark fiber. So therefore, the school could pay 60% of an actual project if the town were to do it along the legs that are in jointly town and school. So the feasibility has a lot of merit financially if the school and town participate together. The intention was to look at how much we're paying from the town to pay Spectrum for the services we receive, because Spectrum and Charter are where we're getting our bandwidth to actually do any business, connecting our water plants, sewer plants, and through the town access and so on. So the broadband project would offset those costs and therefore show the savings, and then show over a period of time the whole thing can pay itself off in a matter of 7 to 10 years. But the bigger project now playing out is the Erie County has just finished a study which has not been published due to the COVID, but they just spent $200,000 to do a feasibility study for the entire county. The town, having done their own feasibility study, now complements that, and we become possibly a pilot program for the county by what they're going to do. And because the town's already done one, that basically helps us move down the line a lot faster, because other towns would be required to do a broadband study to participate with the county program. So it is in the works. And I think once the county gets its act together, we then can approach the school, because then all of a sudden there may be a lot more muscle coming at it to assist the schools and assist the town and basically help a broadband project unfold. So I wouldn't say it's gone, but I would say it's premature at this moment to actually get too far down the road until the county gets its act together. That's
I guess the second question is, has the school board, have they been approached, and do we have their buy-in? Because I'm assuming they should do some type of funding out of theirs if you'll be providing fiber.
Exactly, and that's where the E-rate comes into play. And we've actually presented, but they're looking at it. They don't understand how the monies work. And too bad Robin's not on the line, because Robin would explain to it. They assume that the monies they're getting for technology, for the integration of technology within the classroom, is the same money as we're talking about in E-rate. They're actually two different fundings entirely. But we changed the business managers at the school. When we had the first business manager, he understood it because he was part of the broadband project with Sweet Home, but he's moved on to Buffalo, and the new one basically doesn't quite understand how it unfolds. We need to have a better conversation, but right now it's stalled because there's been too many things going on. And of course, everybody's got tight budgets and on. But I think the county getting involved in doing a broadband for the entire county of Erie is basically a good move to have that conversation. So it's something I would suggest the committee leave it on the table, and then I'll continue to report back on where we stand, and if we can make a presentation with the county, then a presentation with the school, I think then maybe something could happen.
So to recap, there's no plan as of right now for residential fiber, and the school board, we don't have their buy-in then for them to provide funding for the ECAP.
Correct. The intention of the broadband project was to provide enough fiber to take care of the services of the school and of the town, and then have extra fibers in the network that we're going to be running that actually would then be utilized for other providers, that they would provide it and spin off that to make more competition for the town of Grand Island. And that's something that Jim Watson and I have been looking at by working with other competitors of Spectrum that actually will come in and take advantage of the extra fibers and then or basically pay us for the line use. But we would not, as a town, be in a position where we would actually be providing internet services directly to the resident.
Got it. Which I could skip one bullet point, and that kind of brings in Greenlight Networks,
Right.
You know, based out of Rochester.
Based out of Rochester, yeah.
Yeah. So when they kind of first started, you know, hey, we're thinking about coming to Western New York. Both gyms jumped on the bandwagon pretty quick with them. You know, did a show with them, and you know, to see what the opportunity was. So yeah, it was definitely one of the things we were looking at. You know, trying to leverage a little bit of competition, like we said, for the residents.
Did they seem interested?
Very much so. I'll let Jim Watts turn around. Talk.
Yeah, they're very interested. The prospect of being on the island is something they would like to do. There's some difficulty getting on and off the island, as you may know. Fibers are.
So when we contact Layer 3 and have them go through the water.
Well,
sure you still have a connect there.
I've been looking for some contacts to get them across the bridge, under the bridge, underwater, various routes that are available. And it's
I deal with fiber cuts from Layer 3 weekly.
Pardon me?
I deal with fiber cuts with Layer 3 weekly. We have partners in the United Kingdom, and dredging and boats cut them all the time. So
yeah. Well, there's fiber there. It's just a matter of getting it and getting Greenlight together with the other carrier to get here. Then once they're here, they also need our help to be able to distribute the fibers and get customers on board.
Right.
And we do have we're part of the New York State Sonic Ring. There's one going across Grand Island already, going right down the thruway. That goes from one bridge across the bridge. So we know that we have that access that's out there. It was also part of the broadband discussion, is how we connect into their circuits. And that was done out of the Verizon facility on Staley Road, Staley and Grand Island, Staley and Baseline.
Jim, those lines for the thruway, those are under the bridge, right? They're not in the water. I think those are up under the bridge.
I think they're under the bridge. Yeah.
Yeah, the conduit.
They're both. Yeah.
You can see the conduit if you go to the base of the South Bridge on the island side.
Yeah.
You see both tubes.
Right.
So one other item was that kind of ties in with the broadband project, was the Boulevard Sidewalk project, which they're making pretty good progress on. And conduit being placed in underground for future use for fiber, for power, audio purposes like that. So, Jim, I know
that's being done.
Yeah. They ended up putting a bunch of conduit in, 2 pieces, I think, total.
They got 2 on one side, 1 on one side, and they have cuts across the intersections and, of course, driveways and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So that'll help leverage, I think, a little bit in the future, you know, when we're ready to literally cross that bridge to leverage fiber a little bit. 2 other items that are under the broadband project here was 5G. The committee's really talked a lot about, you know, what does the future look like for 5G, specifically on the island, with, you know, either obnoxious looking towers or stuff like that. Jim Watts, I know you have the bulk of the information on that. Do you have a minute to share?
Yeah, I mean, we talked with T-Mobile, and you know, I don't know how much you guys have been involved with 5G, but there's a couple of different ways of doing it. And T-Mobile is working a 600 megahertz technology, which they can operate off of existing towers, and it's a little bit more widespread than using the smaller 40-foot high towers that have to be placed, you know, within about a half a mile of each other. So there's two ways of doing it. T-Mobile's got a 600 megahertz plan. They're rolling that out, and it'll be over existing towers. Verizon, AT&T, others are using other frequencies, and their towers will have to be, well, they won't be towers, they'll be antennas on top of poles, and basically a lot more dense around areas that they're going to provide the service. So when they come to town to put their services in, there's going to be a lot more antennas, and they're going to need to go everywhere, which is another reason why I've got on the agenda list of the antenna guidelines. It's something that if a town doesn't get out in front of it before it happens, basically by federal legislation, the companies, Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, whoever wants to come in and do 5G, they can spring the plan on us and then move. So move without our approval, they'll do it the way they want. So one of the recommendations here is to kind of set some guidelines for them to do that prior to them coming in and saying they're going to do it.
I totally agree with Jim on this one. The other one, I don't know if you've been watching internationally, but this is a very hot issue, and it has a lot of controversy connected to it. In France, they actually started burning down the towers in protest. So, and I've been looking at, and we've been passing notes back and forth on what exactly is happening in this country, because it's starting to catch over here that people don't want it because they feel there's a hazard to it. Again, if it's outside your apartment window, you become ill. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff goes along with it. So having standards, and I strongly agree with Jim, is that this committee really should take this one and run with it and come up with a list of how we want it implemented within our community.
How did I don't remember, how did the dark sky policy come up? Who ended up kind of starting it? Was it our committee? Dark sky came up with out of the discussion. Beverly introduced it when we were talking about the solar and the energy efficiency and so on of the community. But that's where the policy came from, which her was implementing that. But dark sky was also due to the fact that the town is venturing into taking over all of its lighting from the grid and actually becoming an asset of the town instead of us paying a national grid for it and paying for all that money. So that project is underway, but dark sky was implemented earlier enough so that when we actually come into the standards of lighting within the community, that standards would be in place.
Yeah, we submitted our recommendations. I believe the board approved them, and I think that it still lies with one of the committees.
Yeah, the planning.
Planning.
Okay. Cool. Next item on the list was the Spectrum Cable franchise agreement. I feel like this has probably been on since Mike Lockett joined the committee. So it's definitely an old one out there. Tom, I don't know, do you have the latest update or anything on that with the Spectrum piece?
No, the latest update was prior to COVID. I had reviewed it. I had been playing phone tag with the attorneys out of Philadelphia that the town retained to help negotiate that after it was kicked from Hodgson Russ. And I think we talked a little bit about this maybe at the last meeting or the first meeting with respect to some FCC regulations that might have changed. Some of the things we were looking at changing in that agreement. But long story short is we did get another check. I saw it in the audit or something the other day. We got another $167,000 from them, but we do need to get that finalized and renewed. So
yeah, a little background on that. That contract, they're the lawyers that actually representing town of Grand Island, has been working on it, I believe, since 2012. Yep. And so we've been going around. I don't believe, and it actually started with Time Warner, with these people that are actually negotiating for the town. To be honest with you, my candidate is, I don't think they're ever going to want a contract. They're no longer having contracts for residential. And I think they're just going to keep going around and round and round and round and never give us a contract. because they keep bouncing the ball between Charter and Spectrum. And my feeling is they've just been milking the time. We haven't paid the attorneys that are on this project a dime since the town board back in 2012 basically paid them so much money, which was a one price, one cost deal. They say it was money, they got it, then that would be it. The last thing that we have done is actually turn around and have an audit of users that we found out that after doing the audit is that they had not been paying us for as many people that were actually utilizing the Spectrum services. And that's how it got extra money out of the I think almost 16 or 32,000. So the issue comes down to is it's watching and making sure that we're getting the monies that of the subscribers that are actually going on that surcharge just on their bills. But that could be going the other direction because as more and more people cut the cord, less and less people are actually contributing that 3%, which means that there's where you need to watch that very carefully.
And you read my mind, Jim, because I think that's it's part of the problem. I don't know what it is. I mean, that was part of the fight with the FCC and their recent decision that I talked about that I think was from August of last year was basically whether or not high-speed internet is a utility and whether or not it's covered by these franchise agreements and whether or not that 3% applies to that. And they affirmed the decision that it does not. And as you said, basically the issue now is the 3% is only on the cable portion of the bill. And as people cut cords, that's going to go. So I guess without putting the town in a bad position, we'll have to monitor it because honestly, shaking the tree now could end up in a reduction of the franchise fee.
Exactly. So, I mean, that was something that you walk very carefully on. And you're right, because you can't charge on the internet services side of it, only on the programming side of it. So that's something the new members should understand on how that contract is constructed and how we're actually getting a commission on that franchise agreement. And that's the makeup on that. So that's something you need to be paying attention.
Okay. I think we touched on the dark sky policy. I don't know if there was anything else, Tom, on that one we needed to mention on that.
No, and I don't know why the planning board liked it and I thought they voted on it, but I don't remember having anything come across the town board's desk from them. So I'll double check on the status of that, but we may be able to finally just.
Yeah. From our last meeting, we had it it was at the planning level board discussion. So, I mean, obviously things have changed since then. So
I've been to every planning board meeting since then, and I remember them discussing it and they were pretty happy with it. There was some discussion about, how the lumens would be measured and how if they wanted to tighten it up a little bit, it would ever be enforced because it's generally not that type of stuff isn't stuff that's on the blueprint when it comes into them. So, but ultimately they kind of just realize that with the exception of commercial structures, which it's both commercial and residential, it's getting harder to find any type of luminaires or fixtures that aren't dark sky compliant at this point. So
sure.
Yeah, you may be falling into a hole, Tom, that you may want to double check on, and that means the law hasn't been put in place. That's, I guess, what
right. And I think that's it because I'm pretty sure the planning board approved it, which means all that's left is for the town board to take a look at it and finally get it passed. So,
right.
Cool. Under new business, resident issues joined by phone.
He's not here. I played a little phone tag with him after it was a friend of Councilwoman Bainey's who brought it up. So we'll keep that on. I will get in touch with him. My understanding is he was having service issues with a Verizon landline and didn't have any luck with Verizon and thought that perhaps this was something that you guys could help steer with. So,
well, I could actually give you a little bit of insight on that. So how they were parked at the corner of Baseline and Whitehaven for weeks on end.
Yep.
Yeah. So the fire hall was hugely impacted by that because we still have all copper lines for all of our admin lines. We have fiber for 911 services. So what happened was for years and years and years, that hole there in the corner has always filled with water. And every couple months they pump it out. It fills up, they pump it out. So it's gotten to the point that they've spliced it so many times that the wire was damaged all the way back to the colo down by, 1700 block of baseline. So what they did finally is the techs and stuff have been asking for years and years, and engineering for years and years, hey, you need to re-engineer this. We need to get the right wires in here. It needs to be replaced. So at one point, I guess they were about 75% occupied in there. I can't remember what he said, 180,000 pairs. I mean, that was obviously before coax became such a prominent piece of technology for us with the digital age. So anyway, so they did end up pulling a bunch of new pairs, new groups of wire all the way down. And unfortunately, it took them time to get it done. So one day phones were great. The next day I had 6 lines out of 8. The following day I had the other 2 down, but I had 1 of the other. So, I mean, even leveraging a little bit of my Verizon PSAP status for public safety, they did escalate it. They did get to working on it. So I know that they've cleaned up at the corner. They closed all of our tickets that I had open, probably for a good week now, 2 weeks. Everything's been pretty solid. So
I'll follow because this was something that just came up earlier this week. So
okay, yeah, that'd be interesting because they closed. I'd have to look back at my email, but I'm pretty sure they closed the ticket about a week and a half ago.
Okay.
But yeah, it was pretty interesting. I mean, they weren't doing any work throughout holiday weekends. A guy was just sitting there keeping fuel in it, so it looked like, I mean, they were working, but they were doing the job of waiting for wires to get pulled in and splicing and all that stuff. So I know it was quite the fiasco over there for them, but I know they got through a lot of it too. So
hey Ron, did they pull copper? They pull copper in there?
Mm-hmm.
You got to be kidding.
I know. I laughed when he told me that. I can't remember how many pair he said, but they pulled two 128s, two 220s, something like that.
You probably could have done that with 600 pair. That's they should have put a cabinet there and put a digital.
Yeah, it's underground. It's 15 feet down.
Yeah, well,
so
fiber is waterproof. So.
Exactly. Yeah. So I know that's what he told me. He said, as we pull out one pair, we're pulling a new pair behind it. They spooled it all the way down. So
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Town updates. Decision on new technology advisory board positions. That's pretty clear. We have three new folks. That one's easy. Tom, did you have anything else under town business stuff?
Well, there hasn't been much town business for the last few months, but one thing we did do Monday, I think, during the workshop is Councilman Madigan wanted to have the Project Olive project referred specifically to the Conservation Advisory Board, which I had no objection to, but I responded by saying, well, wait a minute, why don't we refer this project to every advisory board and committee that we have and see what their input is. So that means it's coming to you guys. If it's a robotics facility, it's supposed to be a robotics warehouse. So my guess is.
Sounds like they're going to bring their own fiber.
Right. They're going to get a substantial amount of fiber there because their operations aren't going to be very successful if they don't. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know if that's the answer. If there's other things that you guys think. I'll be straight with you for those that were paying attention. What the town board did, and this wasn't at all directly related to Project Olive, but we made modifications to the zoning law. We had an existing incentive zoning law that basically, it was a true pay to play. It was about green space, but you could basically give the town money to be used towards green space and parks in exchange for variances that came with a planned development district. And we've really kind of updated that. And we've broadened the scope instead of really pay to play or green space. Basically what it says now is look at our master plan and you can offer incentives to the town as part of the negotiations for the planned development district. So Jim, maybe you can speak to, Jim Sharp, what technology aspects may be contained within the long range plan, because that's really what the master plan is where that incentive zoning gets its teeth. But there may be things that from a technology standpoint that we should look at either on that end or just issues that bringing something like that may have on the residential subscribers.
Yes, I'm going to go through the comp plan again and actually go into our the technology. We didn't get too heavy into the broadband stuff because that became an area that they didn't feel was appropriate at the time. So, but there is a notation about energy efficiency and internet utilities and so on. I'll pull that out and get a comment for you from the master plan committee.
So, I mean, that's really probably about it from the town updates, with the exception of what I talked about before with respect to COVID really accelerating the timeline for advancing technology around the town. So,
hey, we got new interest in Fantasy Island too, right?
Yeah, that's been working. I actually, the last I had heard is they were close to a lease, and now apparently they want to buy the property, so that's even better. Frankly, I was scared to death with what kind of projects would be proposed for that space if it didn't stay as an amusement park. So I'm very happy, as for numerous reasons, that it appears to be staying that way.
Great. Last thing on our thing is our next meeting. So the newcomers, we usually do the third Thursday of every month. I don't know if you guys have a preference, if you want to think about changing that for everyone else. I think that seemed to be the one that accommodated everybody the best. Maybe we'll see if Robin has a different one that maybe she wants to throw out there, since it's been difficult for her to make the last couple.
And I don't, we can always adjust. We can start a little later. We can do whatever that makes it easier. The only catch is, Ron and Jim Watts, if any changes are made, just make sure I know so that I can make sure that the changes are published to the public.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think Robin normally has a problem. She the week prior to this, or the month prior to this, she was on vacation. So
right,
that's understandable. And I just didn't hear from her on this one. I don't know if she just didn't get the message, or we'll have to reach out to her.
Okay. Great. Anything else from anyone else?
I think is the only one that had problems with having it on a Thursday.
Right. Cool.
Anybody, I'll keep you guys advised, Jim in particular, with respect to what the intention is as far as meeting. But I think in July, even if we are able to meet in person, like I said, it'll be open to anybody who doesn't feel comfortable with that or just isn't able to get there. Zoom or something similar to this is going to be par for the course, I would bet, for at least the balance of the year for those who may not feel comfortable coming to things. I don't know if Taylor or Christian or Ryan or anybody really has any ideas as to issues that the town may have using the combination of Zoom and YouTube, or alternatives that might better serve our purpose. But if you have them, we're certainly open to hear them.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of solutions out there. Zoom by far is one of the most popular, especially given its offering throughout this whole crisis. And there's a lot of interest in Teams from Microsoft. You see their commercials running all the time lately. WebEx is known for stability. Streaming it live to YouTube can get a little funky outside of the Zoom platform. So I think Zoom for this purpose is the right choice.
Yeah, and so without having to buy a license, Zoom would probably be the best.
Yep.
And if there is something better, I mean, WebEx, to be completely frank, we when we have the town board meetings, we've been doing a workshop on Zoom, and then we do our executive session with the town attorneys who've been setting up through WebEx. And every single time we have the same people using the same hardware. and it's fairly flawless with Zoom, and we switched to WebEx, and it's awful. And so WebEx isn't high on my list right now. I've heard Teams is good. I don't know where, we subscribe. I don't think we're on the Office 360 platform yet. What Lynx has told me is that they intend to go there. It was supposed to happen last year, but got delayed. But
no, I mean, is there any reason you'd want to switch off of Zoom right now?
No, unless, like I said, unless there's security issues or something that you guys see that would be a reason not to. It does seem to work because an integral part of doing this, less so for the advisory boards, but for the town board, the planning board, and the zoning board of appeals, those have to be live streamed simultaneously. If we can't live stream them at the same time, we can't hold those public hearings. So
right. I mean, this is a recorded and publicly displayed, meeting anyway. So I don't know if security is like at the utmost, issue.
Yeah, and this one, like I said, this one we didn't have to, and that was why ours is being recorded and then uploaded, because the ZBA is meeting right now. Every time they meet, it is a public hearing. They're making decisions, so that one has to be, if something happened, one of our recent town board meetings, we had an issue where, was it a town board meeting? Judy, do you remember? We had an issue where we couldn't live stream, or we had difficulty. I think we ended up getting it set up, but
yeah, we
were on the verge of pulling the plug on the meeting because without getting it to YouTube simultaneously or to some other it didn't have to be YouTube, but without getting it out to the public simultaneously, we couldn't hold the meeting.
Was this recent, Tom?
Yeah, I think it might have been our last town. Maybe not. It wasn't the last one on Monday.
Wasn't it pre-COVID? Because didn't I stop by the?
No, you stopped by when we were. So Ryan, or anybody who isn't familiar, what we were doing pre-COVID, in an attempt to just make the town board meetings more accessible to everyone, is we bought a Mevo camera that we set up in the courtroom. It hooked into the existing audio system in the courtroom via my personal iPad, but that way we had the audio that was coming from the mics in the courtroom as the audio feed with the camera. So we were using that to broadcast the town board meetings to the public. And that was not something that was being done in compliance with the open meetings law. That wouldn't be, the simultaneous broadcast was a result of COVID. When Governor Cuomo issued his orders saying, you don't have to have public meetings, but if you do, they have to be live streamed. That's what we were dealing with then. So the Mevo was really just really a public service to the residents to make it more easily accessible to them. But, even once the town board has already made the decision that even once that order is lifted and we don't have, we can go back to having our meetings, because theoretically, once he's done, we can go back to having our meetings in town hall. And if you can't make it, too bad. But we don't want to do that. We recognize the fact that for the foreseeable future, there are going to be people that aren't going to feel comfortable going to group gatherings like that. And we want to continue to have the meetings accessible to them, both if it's a public hearing and they want to speak, or just something like this. So.
And then just real quick, I guess, Thursday, July 16th, do the meetings typically start at 7?
Yep.
Great.
Yes.
So for open forums, when it comes to Zoom, do you guys take questions ahead of time, or do you filter who gets the password when joining Zoom? Because I know typically there's a head count amount. I know you do stream it to YouTube, but for people who actually want to contribute, the most I've heard security-wise is just make sure everything's patched. But there have been cases of drive-bys and, just people trying to take down the Zoom sessions as a whole.
Yeah, and we really, with the exception of the Project Olive public hearing that was last week, and the ZBA, and I don't even think the planning board, those meetings, we had public input. So on those ones, we actually did end up publishing the invite for the Zoom with the meeting number and password so that the public could join if they wanted to, because we had to make it accessible. The town board meetings, we haven't had, aside from the Project Olive one, and we had one the week before just to test it out, where we didn't have public hearings, and therefore there was no need to make the Zoom meeting information public, so we kept that between us. and anybody who wanted to observe did so exclusively by, streaming from the YouTube page.
Okay, but you also, you're also in saying if you want them, they can actually contact you and ask for permission to be in attendance, and that's how you're allowing them in and that's how you're managing it so that nobody can come in and just photobomb you on the event. I mean, it's the same thing with your committees. On long range, if my planners that work with us, once I set the meeting, I then, as the chair, I send them invitations to participate. That's how we control that piece of it. Most of our advisory boards do not have public participation in them other than the ZBA and the planning board or the town board. But other than that, it's usually if somebody wants to say something, they'll notify the committee in advance. Tom, the one question I have is that when we had the chairs meeting, you and Jim were going to put out a guideline document that we would make sure we followed. Have you been able to finish that up yet?
No, and I will. I'll get that out. I just have to make a few modifications because it was largely, but you know what? I'll do that, and then I want to get that. Could you guys offer, I mean, because one of the things that was in there, probably the biggest takeaway for me was the agendas and the minutes. What would your recommendation be if I'm going to, because I said you have to send them, but if I'm going to send it, I want to put the detail. How should we ask them to be sent? Do you think it would be wise, at least for now, to have them all sent to us in a Word document so that we can convert them to a PDF to ensure that they're searchable, or run the risk of telling the boards, hey, send this in a PDF, and have somebody send us something that was scanned in and is borderline useless? Because unless you're going to search it, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. If Jim sends me a PDF that he scanned in, unless I attempt to search it, you have no way of knowing whether or not somebody's done OCR on it and whether or not it is a searchable document.
Right.
Or you have to have OCR software so you can actually then convert it to search.
Right. I know we could but to do so, we'd have to know that it wasn't already there. And I'd rather just make this as seamless as possible, I guess.
That's a good question. Maybe to do this transition so the committee really understands the impact of how everybody's doing things differently. Maybe you have a copy sent to this board so this board can actually then look at the documents and see how they're actually producing their stuff, and if they are producing it in a way that it should be done, and then we can make recommendations back on how we see it being done uniformly.
I mean, I think ideally, like I said, and I always look at it, not that I think anybody would be in a position to be changing the contents of another board's minutes or anything like that. But I think in an ideal world, the meetings would be coming from, or the minutes and agendas would be coming from the board in a searchable PDF where there's no risk that they get modified or changed along the way from the board to the website. But,
absolutely.
Right.
All right. Well, then for now, Jim Watts, Ron, that okay with you guys? If we have people send them, I can have them send them to, I think Patty gets.
Yeah, we send the minutes to Patty. Up until now, we weren't, we were handling the agendas and saving the agendas, but I had copied the agendas. I had sent over to supervisor's secretary, and so she's got those. I think she's now putting them up on our website. So if you want those in PDF, we can do that too.
But do you have any objection to receiving the minutes and agendas from the other boards and reviewing them to try and identify what they're doing, and so that we can put together a uniform best practice?
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I do too.
Okay, so what I will do is I will, when I send those out, I'll add a recommendation that we send to Patty, and I'll just do the tech advisory board at Grand Island, or tech board at Grand Island.
Right.
That way you'll both get them and you can circulate them as you see fit. But
Okay.
Okay.
Got a question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay. About posting the minutes of the advisory boards or anything on the website, those they have to be approved before they're official minutes. So to get the minutes for every meeting, we can't post them right away unless they've been approved, unless they say draft.
What we do is once they're approved,
Right.
What I've been doing is once they're approved, I've been sending them over to the town clerk.
So for now, Judy, I would think maybe we can continue. The only thing we change for the time being is when another chair, like if you were going to send the Parks and Rec Advisory Board minutes, send them to Patty and to the tech board email address. And you guys can then just take them, get a better idea of what everybody's doing so that in the future we can come up with a uniform guideline that we can then issue to everybody.
So once they've been approved, let me just get this straight because they're going to have to go up, they'll be going up on the website, but I want them to go up on the website properly because tonight we made corrections to our minutes. So I want to make sure we only have approved minutes posted on the website.
Absolutely.
So, how do you want the approved minutes sent to Patty and to Ron and to us? The approved after the fact.
Yeah. And for now, and like I said, for now, I think we'll just continue. However they come, we'll get them up to the website in whatever format we've been putting them up. But in the next month or two, after you guys have gotten some of these meeting minutes and had the opportunities to review them and come up with a better plan, we can put together that plan and implement it.
Yeah. So just for the record, today we approved the minutes with the adjustments that Ron talked about on the call, and that's what will go into the minutes, and that will be the approved minutes.
Mm-hmm. So then
and I already made that a PDF.
Okay.
And a tutorial.
And I mean, maybe ultimately, and you know, I guess one potential hurdle is with respect to making them into PDFs directly could be whether or not all of the chair people or secretaries have software to be able to do that. But
yeah, if they at least have Office 2013, it'll do a PDF for free now.
Yeah, because you can just save it as a PDF, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. Comes with the print driver now.
But there is one that does not even have that. So
typewriter doesn't have PDF.
Is that historic preservation, Judy? Are they the ones where somebody like emails them to one person's email address and then emails them to another email?
An AOL email. I don't know what it was. They couldn't do AOL back and forth. But so I'm not really sure. And traffic safety always seems to come through as a copy.
Yeah. See, that's what I mean. So for now, if they just get that stuff to you in whatever form they're sending it to Patty, that'll give you guys stuff to look at and say, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Traffic safety is on the website as a scanned in PDF, non-searchable from January of 2020.
Right. So that's one of the problems. And this isn't anything new. I brought that up 3 years ago to ask the liaisons, please, can you get your secretaries to submit these things in a scannable form, at least a digital form, so that we could do something with it. So, you know, I've been trying to get as much up as I can, but if you don't get them, it's difficult. You know, obviously you can't post something you don't get.
Right.
And one other thing, while we're talking about the website, this is our last year on our 5-year contract with the website designer. It'll expire in, I believe, April or May of next year. So I don't know. I mean, obviously we have to make a decision come by budget time, Tom, on what you guys want to do. But I just want everybody to be aware that we've been on this website that we're on for almost 5 years, for 4.5 years now. So moving forward, what do we want to do? And it could be a topic for discussion as the year progresses. So I want to.
Why don't we, Jim? Can we have that on next month's agenda for you guys to discuss, and we can get ahead of it? Because I know, Judy, you were very familiar with this contract from the beginning, right?
Yeah, we can do that.
Sounds like a good survey. What's your satisfaction with the town's website?
Mine isn't very.
Yeah, you can't take it.
No,
You and I both can't take it.
no. I would like to see us pay for, get something that.
Get something more.
Yes.
Yeah, we shouldn't we shouldn't get a base contract. We should get a full blown contract, and we had a full contract, but it got melted or watered down to a basic contract, and we've been piecemealing ever since. That's not been good for us.
Oh no, we need something right from the get-go that's professionally done. And no offense to the people that worked on it to begin with, or any of that, but it was difficult at the beginning, and it was very restrictive on what we could do. So
and that, I remember seeing some of the stuff that was in Kristen Cassio's proposal too. I mean, especially now that we're having this stuff in a more virtual format, because one of her issues was she had I think it was the town of Amherst and somebody else, where there's schedules and stuff. It was all in one spot where you can click on, there was a schedule, you can click on it, you get agendas and stuff. If we're going to be streaming all these meetings, we're going to have it all live. It would be nice to get it all in one place instead of, hey, here, go to the YouTube page and sift through we're just starting this, and there's 50 plus videos already. By the end of this year, there's going to be a couple hundred, and it's only going to get worse as we go. So,
and don't forget, we have 3 years of stuff that's on a Facebook page that we could possibly, archive if we wanted to. They can be converted to MP4 files if we want to. So it's up to you. If we just ask Kelly, it's a tedious task, but it can be done.
Judy, when did you say the website contract expires?
I think it's April or May of next year, I think.
Okay.
I'm not quite sure. I know it's next year.
In the
but
spring.
to get ahead of it, because if we decide to move in a different direction, that's not even enough time, really. But
No, especially when you're talking about, like you said, trying to do it when we're going to have to get a budget set for it sooner rather than later. So we're going to want to have an idea as to what we're looking to spend. So
I have a budget in mind. It's about the same thing as the other budgets that a different budget.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Anybody else?
Yeah, Tom, you mentioned that you might have somebody calling in. You sent an email before I did the.
No, I tried to get in contact with him and couldn't. That was the telephone guy.
Yes.
So I didn't get in touch with him. I will, after my conversation with Ron, I know that I have something to perhaps talk to him about, but it may be something that ends up on next month's meeting. Actually, I do have one other thing, and I don't know if anybody knows anything about this. We had a group reach out to us about potentially, they want to, no, I'll be straight. It was the Somakura, the Wellness Center. We gave them a permit to do an outdoor yoga class in Town Commons. They would like to stream, but they don't have any high-speed internet out there. Options as to what the town could look into potentially doing. I think it would make some sense to have Wi-Fi in the Town Commons right outside of Town Hall. We host events there.
I think when you start doing the gazebo, there's your option. When you do the gazebo, it could be the antenna area for that area. You're actually doing that process. And the conduit that's going down the front of the town hall is also one of your areas that you can actually start putting internet on on the boulevard side. So you have a number of options. You do have the way you thought out on doing that. But the gazebo is one you might want to think about getting the Wi-Fi into the gazebo.
Yeah, what are we using for network access point? Cisco Meraki or Ubiquiti? Do we know what we're using in the town hall for?
We're using Ubiquiti. We're not using Meraki. That would be great if we could do that we're not using, they're using inside controllers, not anything that has outside access.
Are all those Cisco's still up there? A couple of those still, Jim? Those old Cisco APs?
What's that again?
Are those old Cisco APs still up there too, in addition to the UBICs?
Yes.
Yeah. So the old
discussion was to
Aeronets.
redo the Wi-Fi in the town hall now that we had increased the bandwidth to 100. So that hadn't been done before we left.
Mm-hmm.
It's done. It's done now.
Done now? That's great.
It was done. They were finishing it up right as we were getting that Mevo set up, because Jim Lindenfelser actually dropped a cable from the one inside the courtroom so that we could have that Mevo device hardwired.
Gotcha.
To ensure we had some stability there.
Okay. Great.
What about short term? I mean, if they want to do that soon, couldn't they just use a cellular provider to stream, just like people do at a concert?
They could. I think they were looking to have the town do it, and I mean, I don't think there was really a short-term solution for them from our standpoint. But I mean, we used when we did the Memorial Day ceremony, we used the Mevo device and a cell phone to stream it live to YouTube and had no issues whatsoever. So I don't know if they're hesitant to use a phone or what the issue is. But
mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I mean, I didn't bring the question to you guys just for them. I brought the question because I think it really does. Between the concerts in the summer, we have,
offering public Wi-Fi.
We have events there. It makes sense.
It'd be a good opportunity for Spectrum to step up.
And I was thinking that too, Jim, because don't they have those? You see them, especially when I'm like downtown. Every now and then, my phone connects to one of their hotspots for the.
Yeah, they could make a hotspot. Who do we contact and ask them?
I will talk to engineering and get a number.
All right.
Forward it on to you, because I think that would be something good to have.
I'd love to talk to them.
So would I. All righty. Anything else from anyone? Great. Motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Jim Watts.
Paul seconds it.
Thank you, Paul. Second by Paul. 8:44 p.m. Great.
All right. Good night, folks. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thanks, Ron.
See ya. Thank you.
Bye.
Good job, Jim.